Hello everybody and welcome to Scalextrics with Tony and STNE. This is the Scalextrics MotoGP bike that I'm going to chip. It's the Shane Byrne Aprilia, and I've already done the chipping, but I forgot to mention some of the essential parts. Taking the fairing off, there's the screws this side, there's two on that side at the top there, and the same on this side, but there's also a screw down the bottom here which also needs to be taken out. And when you take the fairing off, the fairing stays as one piece, obviously with the screen glued in. Obviously you can't take the fairing apart easily, so when you do remove the screws, you have to prise the bottom of the fairing apart and spread it out across the front wheel as you pull the fairing forward. It's a really sort of delicate little job. You don't want to like prise it too far apart so that it splits the screen and the fairing apart. So just be gentle with it. Also, when you take the fairing off, you'll see there's a lug where this bottom screw goes, and you need to, when you put the routing of the wires back in, make sure that that hole is clear of the wires. And obviously there's the lugs from the fairing that actually sort of fit into the lug on the motorbike. So just make sure the wires are clear of that so you don't pinch any wires. So yeah, I'll now go on and show you how I've converted the bike. So now I've got the bike apart, I've got to decide where to put the chip. And on my previous bikes, I've put it under the seat unit, which I've done again here. I've wedged the front of the chip against the front of the mudguard. There's a little lump which it sort of rests against, and I've pushed the rear end of the chip up inside the tail unit, and that will get glued in when I've finished. And the wires I've routed round to the right hand side so that you can get to the motor. The LED I'll route round to the left hand side just so that it sort of spreads the wiring and it goes down into the fairing. So that's how I'm going to do it. Let's get on with actually putting it together. So first of all, I pulled the braid plate off the guide blade, and the guide blade just pulls out from this lug in there. Oops. And take the metal pressings off of the guide blade, ready for the chip metal pressings to fit in place. So next up, I've pulled the motor wires from behind the radiator so they're all on one side, and I will use these to connect to the chip. And then I'm just going to fit the metal pressings on the chip to the guide blade now. So I've now fitted the chip metal pressings to the guide blade. The green wire goes to the left and the yellow to the right. And I'm going to put the braid plate back on, and then refit the guide back into the lug on the bike. And so next I've cut the metal pressings off of the motor wires and ready to solder the chip wires to the motor. It's going to be a bit of a guesswork now which goes to which, but I'll try it with a battery after I've done it just to make sure it goes in the right direction and swap it over if necessary. So I've got some heat shrink tubing, 1.5mm, and I've cut a piece off there, and I've already put a piece on the black wire there, ready just to seal the joints when I've done them. So I've got my little block of wood that I use for soldering, and I've just balanced the bike against it with the wires ready to solder. So I'll put a bit of solder on these motor wires and then connect it to the green and yellow wires, so I know to the red and black wires on the chip. So I've soldered the black wire to what is the top connection on the motor and the red wire to the bottom connection, and I'm just going to test it now with a battery just to make sure the bike goes in the right direction. I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying to obviously film and do everything in one hand. And the wheels go in the right direction, so I'm happy with that. So let's put it all together. And I forgot to put the covers over the joints, so I've put the covers over the joints and soldered them, so heated them up, shrunk them on so that the joints are now secure and insulated. So the LED has to go through the fairing, obviously. With the magnet on the back, I've drilled a hole just off centre a little bit, just so it's not on the crease. The actual join is centre, but I've done it just slightly off. The main reason is because of the connections inside. It's all like clips together and holds it together, so I've just done it slightly off centre. It should be fine when you feed the LED through it. So now I've placed the chip in the seat unit and I've routed the wires down and tucked it away as best I can at the moment. Obviously fitting the fairing on will hopefully cover most of that so you can't see it. And on the left hand side I've pulled the LED wires down behind where the legs of the wider will be, down ready to fit into the fairing belly pan. So once you've put the fairing back on sort of roughly and make sure all the wiring and everything fits in okay, you've got to try and fit the LED into the belly pan. So it's a bit of a fiddly faff. I actually drilled the hole in the wrong place. I should have done it on the other side because the motor is too close to this bottom edge. So I've drilled the hole that side and put the LED in there. So I'm just going to glue that in next. So I've now screwed the fairing back on. It's a bit fiddly, obviously you've just got to try and get it all in place. There's the two screws at the top of the fairing and the one at the bottom on this side, and the two screws over on this side of at the top of the fairing, which have to be replaced, and the LED is in place. The fairing at the bottom is sort of clipped together, and then the magnet put in just clips in. I'll tidy up the wires in a moment. I'm just going to give it a test run, make sure it all runs okay before I glue everything on the chip in place. So the MotoGP bike is all back together again now, and here it is doing a little run on my track with some lane changing. So first of all, straight on. And then some lane changing. I might have to glue the rider to the seat. And there we go. I say, they're not the best of runners. They tend to sort of like wheel spin quite a lot. But if you want to have a go at converting a MotoGP bike, that's how I've done it. So I've now glued the chip underneath the seat unit. Again, not the prettiest of things to look at. The wires, you can see I've tried to route the LED wire down on the left hand side behind like the footrest area, and on the other side I've wedged the wires up underneath the seat unit as best I can and behind the fairing, obviously out of the way of the screws. You can see it, but again, when it's on track, does it really matter? But it's all done, and then I'll glue the rider on so he doesn't come off, because they do have a tendency just to fall off. But so I'll glue him on the seat, and so when he's in place and you look at it from the side, you can't see much of the wiring really. The chip is sort of visible, but say when you're looking at it from above, where most of us will look at it, you can't see anything there really. And yeah, so not a bad job really.